have noticed, I take a lot of inspiration from the past. Vintage style, vintage icons. One of my favorite people from those eras is Audrey Hepburn. She was an actress from the 50s and 60s, also a model, and she was just an absolute icon. What I really like about her is that her style is always very elegant, and even if you wear it now, you wouldn't even know that it's vintage because it's just so classic. I recently came across these pictures of her where she's hanging out with this striped sweater and black pants, and she's just chilling, and she just looks really cool. It's just a simple and classic comfy look, again, like elegant. So I thought it would be fun to knit a sweater inspired by those pictures and try to recreate the look a little bit. So let me show you how I went on to knit this sweater inspired by Audrey, and how you can knit one too, actually. I'm always trying to find the easy way to get to things. I don't like to go roundabout. I didn't want to sit down and figure out this sweater. I didn't want to spend a lot of time looking for patterns. So I just went with Bellish. Bellish is a knitting pattern generator, and it easily lets you customize your pattern to any size, any style that you want. Details from the style of the sweater, the neck, the sleeves, the embellishments on it, as well as tons of sizes. So you can knit the same sweater or the same garment in a bunch of different sizes without having to do any math. It also allows you to pick what kind of yarn you have. So if you want to use from your stash, or you have a specific yarn in mind for this project, you can just choose that. Last time I used it, I made socks, which are pretty fast and easy, but with a sweater, it's like really testing out how it fits and how it looks like when it's done and all that stuff. So I thought it was perfect for this. This is a very simple sweater. It's a drop shoulder sweater with thin stripes, and all of this is already in the Bellish app. I had to do minimum changes to get what I wanted. So basically just follow the app the whole time. So here we go. This is what I did. I chose the drop shoulder sweater with stripes down the body, thin stripes, because you can choose any size that you want. I decided to actually size down, going by the measurements of the finished sweater, because I wanted it to be more of a fitted sweater and not so much a slouchy one. The only change I really did to this pattern is that I skipped the ribbing because I wanted it to be completely stockinette, and so that was a very simple change. I just skipped that and went right into the pattern. Everything else was pretty much the same. So if you wanted to knit this, all you have to do is download the Bellish app and then select the same settings that I just showed you, and you would have the same sweater. For the yarn, I decided to use Swish. Swish is from Knit Picks, or We Crochet, is the same company really, and it's 100% fine superwash merino wool, which means it has a hair, which means it is really soft. I was actually surprised with how soft this is, and because it's superwash, it should last a pretty long time. So I used about 8 skeins of the navy color and 1 skein of the heather gray, which is actually not that much yarn if you think about it. Mostly because I was, going for a fitted look. The sweater itself is pretty straightforward. Most of it is knit in stockinette, so if you don't know what that means, it just means every row is knit. All I had to do is pay attention on how many rows I was doing so that I could change to the gray color, but I mostly just knit stockinette in the round until we got to the part where I separated the sleeves, and then I knit the front and the back separately flat until it was up to the shoulders. That was pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. Once I finished knitting the front and the back, you gotta sew the shoulders of it. Very simple. I used mattress stitch and sewed both sides, and then I picked up the stitches from the sleeve and just knitted up the sleeve down until it was the length that I wanted. And again, I skipped the ribbing, so there was no ribbing in my version of the sweater. I decided to block it, mostly to get rid of the curling that occurs when you do stockinette. If you've ever seen, is that whoop, going up curling situation. Blocking can get rid of some of it, not completely. It's a look. I'm fine with that. It's not exactly like the one she's wearing. She's wearing more like a jersey type. I thought it was cute and it went more with the style. Anyway, here's what the sweater looked like at the end. All in all, I think this was one of the fastest sweaters I've ever made, if not the fastest ever. Partly because just being stockinette, I took it on vacation with me and I just knit without having really to look. I just counted the rows, and I am not a very fast knitter. I think this was such a breeze to knit through. I think it also helped the fact that I didn't have to think about how to make the sweater too much. I really just got the yarn and jumped straight on it. I did have sort of a swatching problem at some point where I swatched really fast and I didn't quite hit the gauge but I just went through it, so I did have to rip some of it back and then start over because my gauge was wrong. That's a lesson for everybody out there. Always do a gauge, especially when you're knitting a sweater. You don't want a giant sweater and then having to start over. This was a very easy beginner pattern. If you've never knitted a sweater before, I thoroughly recommend starting with something like this, and it also would be a good way of learning to knit in the round, which is what I did. And it doesn't have to be this striped sweater. Again, you can just go to Bellish and select a different style. So if all you know is how to do a stockinette stitch and gauge, then you can make that sweater. That was a nice leap for me to go from knitting socks to knitting a whole sweater with the Bellish app. All in all, I'm still really happy with it, especially the part where you can just size up, size down without really having to go back. You know, one of those things that I never realized are kind of annoying when you have a pattern, and I do this in my own patterns, is that you kind of have to find your size and then follow it. And sometimes if I'm not paying too much attention, I follow the wrong size. So with Bellish, that kind of is gone because you just choose your size and it gives you the pattern as is. And that's probably partly why it was so fast. You know, I don't have to think much. It's nice not to have to think for once and just knit. Bellish has shown to be a very useful tool for knitter, especially for projects like this where it's like, I just have an idea of what it would probably look like, but I have no clue how to make it. So what do? I just go to the app and find the things that I need. Anyway, I don't know if I nailed the Audrey Hepburn look or not. I did have to put my AC very high because it's the summer and it's really hot in New York, and I don't think I will be wearing this sweater anytime soon. Once it gets cold, I think it's gonna be a staple in my closet. It's just so simple, so classic, and so comfy. So what do you think? Would you knit the sweater? What type of design would you create with an app like Bellish? Let me know in the comments below. If you've downloaded it and made your sweater on your own or have plans to make one, I would like to know too. Don't forget to subscribe for more knitting / vintage stuff, and happy knitting! Don't you love it when it's soft?